How many of you are ready to grow in your leadership?
Most of the times, the growth option is the scariest one.
Imagine the legacy you would want and then work backwards.
A rebel leader looks at every situation with curiosity.
Our legacy is defined by how we treat others.
The ability to take social risks is as important as a breakthrough idea.
Only you can choose how you want to impact your society.
What's the best that can happen?
The very reason you are where you are is because you're the right person for this moment.
Welcome everyone, and the Global Leadership Summit is coming next week to Malaysia, so that's very exciting. And while that is something to look forward to, I have in our studio today Edward Roncon, right? Or
Roncon, that's correct.
Very cool name to sort of talk about. Edward was with HSBC for many years, very senior leader, and tell us a bit about yourself, Edward, because it's exciting to have you with us and exciting to have you in our presence. And I think there's a lot to learn on servant leadership from you. So tell us a bit about yourself, and maybe you can share a bit on your philosophy of what servant leadership is all about.
Sure. Thanks, Roshan, for this opportunity. So, yes, I've been in Malaysia now for almost a decade. Previous roles were in Sri Lanka and India. And it's been a really fascinating journey, both personally and professionally for me, in terms of this whole journey of leadership. And I've been quite fortunate to have been blessed with a lot of people who've come into my life in a variety of ways and sort of helped me understand what leadership is all about. And the key message I would say around leadership, which I've learned in the journey, is that leadership is a partnership, and servant leadership is more about giving than receiving, right? And I've been very fortunate that I've had a lot of mentors in that journey. I've also realized that leadership is not linked to designation. A lot of time we are very fascinated by the designations that people have and the journey that they hold. And servant leadership to me has really been all about a journey of giving. I was very fascinated by a very great book written by Ken Blanchard, The 1 Minute Manager. And it was very fascinating that that book really spoke about insightful moments about managing teams. And then Ken Blanchard's journey subsequently went around doing research and formed a completely different scenario around servant leadership when he got the Lead Like Jesus program. So that's particularly fascinated me and been a key aspect of my journey. And something I try and practice. It can be very difficult in the corporate world, but I think it's very key that we build those relationships and we're seeing as serving teams rather than just leading them.
And your sort of personal leadership journey began when you were a young kid, actually, right? Where you had some family sort of challenges that resulted in you being with your grandma at a very early age. And then fighting to be successful. Talk us through that early journey and how that catapulted you to where you are today, somewhat.
So I think my personal journey has been a great learning in terms of reflection. So I come from a family which was Christian. My parents, my mother's side were Hindus, which was always an interesting journey. I was very fortunate to have gone through some very great institutions like St. Joseph, North Point, and Darjeeling sort of helped me shape my journey. And in that personal journey, I really understood that patience and perseverance and there are greater things in your life. Like I remember 2 years spending with my grandmother in a place called Kalimpong, which is in a hill in Darjeeling, and learning to play chess and not really understanding why was that important, because I had a lot of time on my hands then. Getting into university was a bit of a challenge, and subsequently, I later found out that those 2 years of chess helped me get a chess scholarship in the college that I went to. I went on to become university chess champion, and it was a very insightful journey in terms of persevering. My first job then in the hotel industry, which my parents were a part of, and then subsequently into Thomas Cook, eventually into HSBC. I've just left HSBC, sort of taken a bit of a break, resetting what I want to do. But I think the most important message I leave there is that it's very important not to get frustrated when times are difficult in your life. And it's very, very important that, you're leading not just in the workplace, but also at home. And even, servant leadership at home is something I struggle a bit more of, because we sort of take our family for granted. But I think it's very, very important that we look at that aspect as well. And then people look at us and say, okay, what makes you different? And I think that's something which I really try and focus on and try and give back to the society.
And these are very turbulent times, right? I mean, with the pandemic, with I guess becoming an endemic, and sort of people struggling in this displaced sort of world with so many different factors, right? Digital, pandemics. I mean, all these changes that are occurring at the same time, somewhat, almost in a tumultuous fashion. How, if you, as a leader, many leaders are struggling, to manage employees, to empower them, to actually run companies and take them forward. What sort of advice would you provide or give, or nuggets of wisdom that you would sort of impart to leaders, if you could advise them, or if you could impart any pieces of advice?
Okay, so I think, firstly, I would say always tell your employees the truth, right? I think we always underestimate, whether large or small organization, the power of the employee, right? I've got to know more about the firm from some perceived very junior people who actually know what's happening. So I think, I think honesty with your team builds that trust. And if they trust you as a leader, then they will trust you to take them through that difficult journey, right? I always say, like, leadership is sometimes you're the captain or the team member of a ship, but if that ship has no trust, then the ship will definitely sink. So I think that's the key. And I think the other thing is to be organized and have a plan. At times in problems, we are reactive rather than stepping back and taking a thing. And I think the ability to step back and take the team through the journey is important. And if they trust you to take them to the shore, however turbulent it is, I think you've got to then make sure that you live up to that trust and partner with them and take that. And that involves, again, giving and receiving, and also taking inputs from the team. Because one thing you must always understand as a leader is you never have all the answers. And asking people for what the right answer is also important. So I think it's a combination of trust, it's a combination of collaboration, it's a combination of the ability to take some of the more difficult decisions, but ultimately do that for the betterment of the team. And your leadership should be situational, but inclusive as well, where you include the team on the journey.
Fantastic. And, leadership is a journey. And I think you have journeyed and learned, different experiences, different insights have enabled you to move, to the next level of leadership. And if you were to advise others who are on this journey of leadership, what's the best way to learn leadership? I know for myself, it's about reading sometimes. It's also about applying what you read. It's attending events like the Global Leadership Summit and being inspired and getting insights and then applying it. But for yourself, what would you recommend would be best practices in terms of how we can grow in our leadership?
So I think, for me personally, the biggest experience on leadership has been experiential leading, where you apply what you practice. I think, it's great to read that book on the beach, but the problem is the moment you leave the beach, the challenges, the reality sits in, right? And I think as leaders, you've got to be very conscious of that reality. The other important thing is, don't try and go and change the world. If you try and change 1% or 2%, I think Leaderonomics has that same vision as well. I think you start small. I've been very happy to see people I've worked with over the years who are maybe, 4 grades different. Actually, I've actually gone 2 grades above where I've been. And I think, but we still maintain that connect as people. I think that people connect is very important. And don't try and, don't try and save the world. Try and save 1%, 2%, make a difference. And I think you've got to really focus on the youth, because when they're young, you can mold and shape them. As part of what I also do, I also teach in Sunday school, and it's been a real privilege to sort of help shape those minds in terms of leadership aspects as well, right? So I think it's practice, it's perseverance, and be real as well, because the pressures of the real world can be a real distraction, and you've got to be honest about that.
Fantastic. We got a couple of people who are tuning in. Let me just look at some of the comments. Anil says, like the point, leadership not linked to titles and delegation. Absolutely. Sashi Wax, storify your experience. Thank you, Edward. And I think that's true. Great leaders tell great stories, right? And Ken Blanchard was one who shared, I guess, in terms of parables, a lot of stories. So that's a big aspect. Nantini says, reminds me about a book, It's Your Ship. It's a good read. Great point, Edward. Thanks for that. Anil again with a couple of comments. Trust, honesty, collaborations are critical while managing teams. You agree with Anil's? Any sort of quick sort of feedback from some of the comments that we are seeing out here?
So I think the quick feedback I'll give is that absolutely true. And, for me, it was particularly a challenge, right? Because, I don't know what you think looking at me. You may be thinking I'm Malaysian. So I'm actually from India, right? So that's a bit of a thing. So I'm actually from India, worked many years abroad. I'm currently living in Malaysia for the last decade. And I think you've got to understand the cultural connotation also while building teams, right? And I think Malaysia has been a fascinating journey in that with the diversity we have, right? So I think you've got to build trust, but understand where people are coming from, because different people from different backgrounds come with very, very different views and and you've got to embrace that, not try and change that. So leadership is about shaping people with their background rather than shaping them with what you think they should be.
Accept what they are.
Accept and mold them for their best.
And build upon it.
And through that, I've also learned. So leadership is a two-way journey here. I learned from my teams. And, I think, I want to say thank you to all my teams who've helped shape me. Because I think without their insights and feedback, I wouldn't be the leader I am today. So I think leadership is also a two-way thing. The leader who stops listening stops being a leader.
So I see a couple more comments. Nantini says, thoroughly learning from leaders around me, and it feels great to be inspired. And absolutely, we learn from everybody, right? Not just from leaders, right? I mean, your point is that you can learn a lot from people all over the organizations, regardless of where their ranking is. Quick question from Mr. K7. What are your hopes and vision for the year ahead, Edward?
Okay, so I think for me, my current situation has allowed me to sort of have a sort of reset, right? So I do plan to be on that beach, right? So I'm hoping to get to Langkawi next week. It's a long-awaited holiday, celebrate my wife's birthday. So on that beach, I'm going to sort of reset everything. I think my focus is health. Continue my leadership journey in the sort of right location of firms, and really look at continue to give back, because I think I have a lot of opportunity to sort of give back, to society. But more important, continue to learn, because I think leadership. The day we think we stop acting or think as leadership, you've lost it. And I think there's a big difference between managing teams and leading teams. And I think leadership is an aspect that we need to continue to learn. I'll never forget this one story I remember, which was true. So somebody asked this person who was, sweeping the floor on NASA, saying, what's your job? And he said, that person said, my job is building rockets which land people to the moon. So I think that's the sort of thing we need to inspire our people about, that, irrespective of the job they do, they understand the bigger picture and they understand they're part of that bigger picture. I think that's when, you're really leading teams who understand, that they're part of the big picture, irrespective of what they do.
Yeah. And it's a fantastic story. I mean, it reminds me of the Socrates story where two people were hitting rocks, and one said, I'm just hitting rocks because that's what I'm asked to do. The other one said, I'm building this great temple for my God, and I think that illustrates, if you have the why and purpose, you mix whatever your job, how mundane, it makes it a much bigger and broader things. Couple more comments. It's all about human-to-human connection and connectivity from Anil. Wax says, great insights. And there is a welcome to Malaysia from Nantini. Welcome to Malaysia, Edward. Good to have leaders like you with us with global mindset to share our experience and journey with us. Indeed, a two-way journey. So thank you so much for your comments. And if you've got more comments, have them rolling. I've got one more question for you before we wrap this up, Edward. But before we do that, I have to do a shout out for the Global Leadership Network, who runs the Global Leadership Summit. And that's happening on November 27 and 28. We'll just put a quick little banner, and I'll also show you some links. And if you sign up today with the promo code LEADER, you get 25% off, right? So just use the promo code LEADER. We'll send you the links. And if you can just show maybe a list of some of the speakers, I'll get our producer to show the quick banners. We've got people like Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote the book Outlier, Blink, a lot of great books. He will be speaking, and so will be Shola. Amazing. Judith Fun, I love her. I mean, one of my good friends actually writes about white space, the importance of having the time to reflect, like what Edward talked about. And we're going to show a little quick video on some of the speakers that will be coming for this year's GLS. So let's just watch this quick little reel on the speakers. So the Global Leadership Summit is coming November 27 and 28 here to Malaysia. So if you are ready, sign up. There's a QR code you can scan that's on your screen right now, or you can go to the site, which we will flash in the social media feeds in a bit. So you'll be able to sign up there. And don't forget to use the promo code LEADER and get that discount for yourself. So I love the Global Leadership Summit. It's been an opportunity. Every time I take so much notes. I sometimes take 2 pads of notes, but it's not just the notes, right? It's after that when I review it and start to think about how to apply it to my life. And Leaderonomics, right? You know, the issues and challenges that we had. It's where I really start to see things, because I hear lots, and this is where I think great leaders, when you hear their stories, including this conversation with you get a different perspective and insight on life. And it just challenges your thinking, because I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. But other people know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. But when you start sharing, the sort of Johari window starts to broaden and you start to see things that sometimes you never knew, right? So I love summits like that. So I would, to close it up, you said you're very keen on developing youth, on making a difference, especially to the younger folks. If you could give advice to younger folks, in their universities, many of them are confused. Who am I? What am I? Why am I here? They're searching for identity. They're searching for meaning and purpose, right? With all the confusion and that the pandemic and others have brought, what sort of advice would you impart to these young people that are out there at this point in time?
I think that's a very good question. So I think, if I take my own youth and my own situation where I was in exactly that state many, many, many years ago, I would say just 2 things. Follow your heart. Yeah. The job you will be successful in is the job that you really love doing. Think about what makes you get out of bed and excited, right? So that's one thing. And it's not always money, right? So I think that's a key message. The second important thing is surround yourself with the right mentors and friends and take their views, because they will give you, like you spoke of the Johari window, a really inside view of what you are. So I think surround yourself with people you trust, ask them those questions, and follow your heart. There's no such thing as a career with a designation. A career is a lifelong journey, and you've got to do what you love. So follow your heart, whatever that is, and surround yourself with people you trust, and make sure you ask them for advice, because they will give you insights what you do. But ultimately, whatever decision you take, it's your decision, and it's very, very important that you believe in it and take it forward.
Fantastic. So thank you, Edward. It's really been a pleasure having you with us today. And it's a short, albeit it's a short conversation. It's very powerful. And there's a lot of nice key takeaways that we have got from you. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Final call, if you have not signed up for the Global Leadership Summit, make sure you do and use that promo code to enable yourself to get a better deal. It's really an event worth being. So with that, bye everyone, and I will see you next week at the Global Leadership Summit. Have a fabulous weekend, have a fabulous Friday, and goodbye, and take care, and stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
How many of you are ready to grow in your leadership?
Most of the times, the growth option is the scariest one.
Imagine the legacy you would want and then work backwards.
A rebel leader looks at every situation with curiosity.
Our legacy is defined by how we treat others.
The ability to take social risks is as important as a breakthrough idea.
Only you can choose how you want to impact your society.
What's the best that can happen?
The very reason you are where you are is because you're the right person for this moment.